You guys met Ollie in the last video. This one's Sky. She's a bit more rambunctious, but yeah. That's the two cats. Alright, let's move right into this. I wanted to make a few videos about books, and you can see I got a bit of a good collection going on here with different books. I wanted to make one about like climbing books, obviously, maybe more story related. This one I wanted to do more of like some good reference books for different facets in the climbing world, and talk a little bit about some of the well-known ones and then some lesser known ones. Let's start with the old classic, a really old classic, Mountaineering: The Freedom of the Hills. This is the current edition right here. This is the 4th edition. And you notice how they're kind of the same size. It's kind of funny. So a lot of people, and including the book itself, refer to this as kind of the Mountaineer's Bible, the Climber's Bible, or something like that. And while these books do have some decent information in them, I wouldn't really call it so much a Bible as like just another textbook. If you flip through this book, you can get like some good information for sure. And I've even met people that are working their way reading through the whole thing, which is definitely good baseline information. It's a good reference book, but I don't really treat it as the rules of climbing, you know. It's just another book with good techniques in it, and it's useful to have that in your collection. So that's kind of getting it out of the way. I know I'm going to get some comments about that, or people defending the book. It's a decent book for sure, but if you want to get into more specific techniques, then other books are good for that as well. And so moving on to, let's start in the rock world, seeing as I have a lot of rock books. Here's another old classic, Royal Robbins Advanced Rockcraft. No, I do not own the basic Rockcraft. I don't even own this book. But this one's actually just a fun one to read, to see kind of what you used to recommend back in the climbing days. This is after they invented nuts and hexes, so you can see all about that on the pages. They talk about how to place nuts, hexes. They also go into your standard aid climbing and pounding ropes, fall factors, how to belay. Well, not how to belay. That's in the basic Rockcraft. This is advanced Rockcraft, so living on the wall and aid climbing sort of skills. And it's just fun to look at the drawings and stuff. It's a little bit of a timepiece. They aren't that expensive if you know where to buy them. I think this was bought at Half Price Books or something like that. So it's just a fun book to have. I wouldn't exactly reference any of the techniques in that, though. They are completely out of date. Moving in more with the Common Times. This one's actually not a bad book. Climbing Anchors by John Long and Bob Gaines. Bob keeps on writing books, so we're going to have a good number of books by Bob in this pile. But this one gets into more or less the anchoring side of climbing, which also involves like trad climbing and like placing trad gear and analyzing bolts and stuff. Really good topics, equalizing your anchors together, all this good stuff, and basic knots as well. Going over the Serene, Renee, and Nerds, any of those sort of principles. Building anchors on a series. I'm just like looking through all this right here, so a lot of good information if you want to dive a bit deeper into the world of climbing anchors. And it is a bit of an older print book, but everything is still pretty well up to date. If you want to get even more up to date with anchors, Bob has actually written a new book. This is Advanced Rock Climbing. And actually, it's kind of a bit of a precursor from this book right here, which is just standard rock climbing. This is the AMGA single pitch manual. So if you take an SPI course, they expect you to have this book. And so you can look through this book. This also does the same sort of, I guess you could say, boilerplate information on analyzing your ropes, your harnesses, you know, working with clients is another big part in this book, seeing as it is starting to get you down the guiding track. So if you do plan on going down guide track, this is a great book to have. It's also a really nice book if you are just the most experienced person in your group and you're bringing out less experienced folks. So it talks about Munter hitches, anchoring principles. It talks about anchoring principles all the way from of like your standard three-piece anchor belays all the way up into using a more dispersed anchor, like where you would use static rope to sort of link all of those pieces together. And then if you have all those skills, then you can build an anchor anywhere. So this is a really great book for that as well. It talks about, again, more bolt analyzation, warns you about how to look for bad bolts and old bolts, and tells you all sorts of different anchor possibilities. So it's just a really nice book to have, and another great reference book. So what Bob did with this newer one that came out is he took this same sort of info and went a bit more in depth with it, and then moved into some newer, don't know what that is, moved into some newer techniques that are more common for the era. Because when he wrote this book, it was probably about 9-ish years ago or so. And so now he's kind of added in the newer techniques that came with it. I guess I should do Jason Martin some credit too. This is actually Bob Gaines and Jason Martin who collaborated on this book, whereas this one is only Bob Gaines. So give credit where it's due. In this book, he gets more into like following aid climbing in general. He gets into some more advanced multi-pitch belaying skills, like how to do a direct belay off of an anchor in a multi-pitch situation. He talks about even, I'm looking at it right now, top rope soloing on a rope. Goes in depth with belaying, body belays, and then he also has a lot more of his usual anchor information, even stuff like how to clip a rope a bit more efficiently while sport climbing. So this is another great reference book if you want to sort of bump your technical knowledge up a little bit. I guess stepping into more of the experience realm, Andy Kirkpatrick's 1001 Climbing Tips is actually just a real fun book to look through. He has it all segmented out into numbers, up to 1001. And he has it segmented it out even further into like mountain skills, big wall skills, rock climbing skills, mixed ice climbing skills. So it's just kind of fun to read through these and see what he has to suggest. Sort of rounding out our specific rock climbing books, I just wanted to throw this one out there also, the Trad Climber's Bible. And so it's interesting how they also called this one a Bible, but it's actually more of a storybook. All the stories are written by John Long or Peter Croft. And it's not so much like this is how you place a cam and this is how you place a stopper or whatever, but this is actually very much like more or less just telling a bunch of stories. And it starts off with Peter and John learning how to climb, and then it moves on to their different experiences and adventures they've had over the years. And they have some really fun stories in this for sure. And interlaced with the stories, they do have little tips here and there. Like if I'm just reading a normal story like that, I can read it all the way through, but it has like this other actual lesson that you can gain from the story sort of filtered in right there. So it can help you learn stuff through their experience, which is actually kind of cool. And I like the different twists they put on with this book. And yeah, it's more than just an instructional book. You can learn a lot from just their lives. A more specific version of rock climbing is big wall and aid climbing. So the first book I have is the classic How to Big Wall Climb by Chris McNamara, or McNamara. I'm not sure how to say it again. But it kind of uses El Cap as the ending goal, like to climb the nose. And then it starts with how to build yourself up technique-wise and training-wise to get to that point. And then from there, you can use all those techniques on smaller walls. And then after that, you have the skills to move on to bigger walls. So I actually really like how this book is organized. And it has a bunch of good information. That's some of it is more up-to-date. And others of it is just like a good way to just your standard big wall practices. So he did a great job with that one. Now, after you get past that book and you want to move on to the whole world of crazy aid climbing, that's when you get this one. This is Hooking Up by Peter Zabrock and Fabio Eli, something like that. I think it's Ely. But you can see this thing is huge. And if you just flip open the page, or to any page, you'll see some crazy aid climbing technique, or Pete himself hauling 7 haul bags up a wall after spending, 2 weeks on the wall. And just all this other crazy aid stuff that he's developed, him and Fabio have developed over the years, involving aid techniques and adding a little bit extra onto those techniques as well. And also some other stuff that him and his friends have developed, like his continuous loop system and his other aid soloing techniques that him and Chongo and other people have developed over the years to make solo aid climbing more efficient. It has a whole section on solo aid climbing, which is definitely why I'm interested in this book. And yeah, this one's amazing. Any aid climber should have this in their library. 2 books that I have for alpine climbing. This one is my favorite, the Alpine Climbing Techniques to Take You Higher. This is by who? Mark Houston and Kathy Colsey. And Costly. I can't read today. And so this just takes you through all the standard alpine stuff. If I look at it, alpine environment, the preparation and equipment, route finding, alpine rock, snow, glaciers. So it takes you from step to step on all the different terrains that you get in alpine climbing. It may not go as in-depth as a book that's specifically on that topic, but it gives you a great foreground. If you're looking into getting into that, you can check out this book, get a lot of the baseline skills, and then you can dive in deeper from there. So I think that this is a really great alpine climbing book, especially their section on navigation. I thought was really great. This is another book that any mountain guide should have, the Mountain Guide Manual. This is by Mark Chauvin. And then Rob Copolio. I don't know how to say anyone's name. And this, if you're into transitions and rope work, this is the book for you, especially in order to make yourself and your partner more efficient on the mountain, getting up, getting down, or if you have a group of 3 on the mountain, getting up and getting down, which is why the mountain guides really love it, because you're always dealing with 3 people, and it's just these really fast and still safe techniques. It goes into ice guiding, alpine rock guiding, alpine glacier guiding, and then just your sort of standard rock guiding too. And so it has tons of techniques, tons of transitions, a lot of pictures to help you learn those transitions. So that's a great book, especially if you're going to look into guiding. Something a bit more specific, ice and mixed climbing. This one's by Will Gadd, of all things. And this one's a bit of an older book, but much of the techniques have stayed the same more or less. Some of the equipment, as usual, has changed a bit. But so like if you're going for modern day equipment advice, this is not really the best book for you. But as far as movement goes and ice systems, it is still right on the money. So that's a good book if you're looking into ice climbing or mixed climbing specifically. Again, it is touched in some books like alpine climbing, but this book is just going to give you a lot more in-depth information. Well, that's pretty much all the reference books I got for you guys today. There are definitely a lot more of them out there, so if there's one that you want me to check out, then you can put it in the comments and stuff, because I always like finding new books about different things. But stay tuned for my next video, which is going to be more about like reading books that you can do in the climbing world. Here's a little teaser for you. This is a book called In the Zone. It's published a while back, I think around 2006 or so, or even 96. But it was, I think it's a really great book written by Peter Potterfield. It has 4 stories in it of different survival stories in the mountains, ranging from the Himalaya all the way to the North Cascades, actually, with his own story. And yeah, it's just a fun one to read, especially when you're kind of tired of reading about how to clip a carabiner. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, sending.